Well, Piers, we've never been mealy-mouthed about it. We said from day one that we would end tuition fees, that we would make our National Education Service free at the point of need.
Piers has acknowledged that you've said that you would abolish tuition fees, but the point is not about tuition fees from now on in. It's about the debt that students have already accrued. And the point that is being made is that students thought you would clear their debt because Jeremy Corbyn told a student, largely student publication, the NME, before the election, I will deal with it. And to a lot of people who voted for you, that might have sounded like a promise. Was it?
Susanna, you know that there wasn't a promise on that, and I've been clear. I understand student debt versus student fees, and many students do. I think it's disingenuous to say that students didn't understand that. They do understand that. And
when you say you're going to...
Angela Rayner recently found herself in the centre of a storm when she gave an interview to Piers Morgan, which caused a real storm of criticism. This clash has become not just a political debate, but a real battle for accountability and honesty. Piers wasn't shy about asking pointed and uncomfortable questions, and Angela tried her best to keep up. But the tension was building. Soon, the conversation turned to a topic that worries millions: student debt, and this caused a real storm of emotions. Earlier, Angela hinted that the Labour Party could solve the problem of the unbearable financial burden faced by university graduates. But Piers reminded her that you promised to cancel the tuition fees, and from that moment on, the conversation is no longer about tuition fees, he said. We are talking about the real debts that students have already accumulated.
Deal with something.
Susanna,
are we now going to assume that I will deal with it means you won't deal with it?
Susanna, if you read out the statement, the actual transcript of what Jeremy Corbyn said, you're picking out one particular word. He said that he would look at the loan repayments over a longer period. He would look at other ways of trying to look at that debt, but he didn't make any promises on student debt.
Well, let me ask you, in terms of the ambition, we are nearly at £100 billion worth of student loan debt. Can you give me a rough guide to how much of that you, the Labour Party, would like to reduce it by?
The students took this as a spark of hope, but in this interview, Angela abruptly changed her position, saying that it was not a promise at all. When you raise expectations in this way, people crave clarity, not uncertainty. Piers, as expected, did not miss the opportunity to put pressure on her. He mentioned the staggering sum of £100 billion in student loan debt, and his question was sharp. What is Labour's real plan to reduce this colossal debt? Angela couldn't give a clear answer. Instead, she evaded an extensive discussion, avoiding specifics, and the audience might notice that she was not ready to voice the real numbers. Piers Morgan wasted no time getting down to the political nuances. He touched upon one of the most pressing financial issues: student loans. The UK's student loan debt has reached a whopping £100 billion, and Morgan has repeatedly raised this figure, demanding specific answers from Rayner. His tone was harsh and his questions were merciless. What exactly are the Labour Party going to do about this?
Well, Piers, let's be clear, 30% of it is never repaid. It's just, stays with young people for a long time. But we were clear on what we said. And at the time, Piers, nobody was talking about this because it wasn't an issue, because people understood what we meant by our student fees and student debt. The reason people are talking about it now is the Conservatives do not want parents and students to know that they are increasing tuition fees and ripping them off on the loan repayments.
We all understand.
And the Tories could do something about that today.
But that wasn't the question I asked you. I just asked you how much of the near 100 million, I think it's £76 billion of student loan debt now, how much of that, in your ambitious plan, let's call it nothing more than that, do you hope to reduce that by?
We didn't have a plan. Piers,
you don't have a plan?
You're making an assumption and trying to leave me. We didn't have any commitment on the manifesto to deal with student...
Angela couldn't give a direct answer. Instead, she plunged into a lengthy monologue about opportunity, justice, and education reform, but avoided specific figures. What's the matter? Piers wasn't looking for abstract ideals. He demanded clear and concrete answers. How much do the Labour Party intend to reduce this colossal debt? How are they going to handle this situation without creating additional problems for taxpayers? No answers were received to these important questions that worried viewers watching the interview from home. This question was not new to Rayner. The students were already furious at her previous comments, which seemed to promise relief but were later rejected. Many hoped that this interview would clarify the Labour Party's position, but her evasiveness only increased discontent and doubts.
We said from day one that we would abolish tuition fees. We put 9.5 billion to do that and bring back maintenance grants, which is 1.7 billion.
Yeah.
No, but Piers, this is what I'm explaining to you.
No,
You're
but
asking
I'm
me
asking
about
you
Labour's
to.
commitments.
I'm only asking a simple question. You keep answering my question with an answer.
They were not our commitments.
Yeah, but you keep answering a completely different question. I'm only asking you how much of the 76 billion.
I've answered the question.
Let me try it one more time.
We did not commit.
Right, to
Piers,
avoid.
we did not commit. Let me be
that's
clear.
not the question, Angela.
We did not commit to removing all of the debt.
I'm not saying you did.
We did not commit to that. It was not in our manifesto. So you can ask me questions about it, but that's not what we committed to.
I'm actually asking you what.
I'm on your programme today. I've given you an.
I'm actually asking you.
Her colleagues began openly criticizing her. Is this an evasion, or did she just not know the numbers she needed? In any case, the lack of clarity has become a problem not only for her, but for the entire party. When people face such a serious problem, they expect much more from management than vague assurances. This is not the first time that Angela Rayner has failed under pressure. There are moments in her track record when she stumbled over key facts, and the audience remembers these failures. She misstated important figures, misquoted data, or could not substantiate her statements with specifics. It's not just about student loans. It's a phenomenon of uncertainty that can't be ignored. And it's alarming to anyone who expects clarity and certainty from her.
I wanted to talk about those parents that are watching your programme today that are concerned about childcare.
Angela.
Well, you're not listening to me, Piers. You don't listen.
Let me tell you how this works.
There's many parents there that want to talk about childcare.
I ask a question, you answer the question. It's not a difficult dynamic. You've done this many times.
I answered it, Piers.
Let me try one more time.
I answered your question, Piers.
You yourself have said...
Go again. Let's do it again.
You yourself have said it is now an ambition of the Labour Party, your words, not mine, and endorsed by Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell. Everyone's agreed it's now the ambition is to deal with the student loan debt, which is currently £76 billion. I'm simply asking you, as part of your ambition, how much of that debt do you intend to try ambitiously to pay off?
One of the most troubling problems is her inability to name the partner companies she says she has worked with. In politics, trust is not just a word, it is the foundation of everything. When you make big statements about yourself, people expect concrete evidence. If you can't provide them, it starts to look like idle chatter. And that's what many critics say about Rayner. She talks a lot, but her words are often left without confirmation. An important question arises: how can the public trust someone who doesn't seem to have full knowledge of the details? It's not enough to just have passion or ambition. Leaders must be insightful, accurate, and well prepared. Angela's frequent mistakes raise serious doubts. Does she have the necessary knowledge to match her style? Such interviews are not just conversations, they are a real test of competence. And for someone in her position, the inability to give a clear or precise answer hurts not only her, but also the image of the Labour Party as a whole. This creates an atmosphere of distrust and frustration, and people start to wonder, can she really be the leader they deserve?
Piers, we said it was not a manifesto pledge for us to look at student debt. I've been clear that Jeremy Corbyn said that he would, if he could and the money was there, he would look at ways to do that. I've made it clear there's two things that we could do immediately. Look at the repayment threshold and look at the percentage rate of loan, which will help students today, including those with student debt. They're things that we can do immediately. Anything else, we will not be setting out plans to deal with student debt unless we can afford it and we make that promise. We never made a promise on that. It's interesting because the government have no plan and they have no design for the country on how they're going to deal with the issue. They created a £100 billion debt
Angela,
and they doubled the national debt of this country.
Angela.
And it's interesting because there's never a time where you challenge the government on that.
Angela Rayner is not alone in her struggle with harsh criticism. Rachel Reeves, the Labour Party's shadow chancellor, also finds it difficult to make an impression in an interview. Together, they don't match what the public longs to see in their leaders. What is the root of the problem? Both, when faced with difficult questions, often get lost in incoherent answers, instead of giving clear and concise answers. In today's media-dominated world, this is becoming a real disaster. People expect leaders to respond quickly and confidently to questions. When questions are asked, the audience does not want to listen to 10-minute reflections, they require clear and direct answers. And unfortunately, neither Rayner nor Reeves mastered this vital skill. As for Angela, her lack of this skill became especially evident during her tense altercation with Piers Morgan. The British audience watched with bated breath as she evaded the answers. Instead of boldly and directly answering his question, Reeves had similar moments in an interview on Labour's economic policy, and the effect was the same. Because of this, both women looked less prepared and competent, which causes disappointment and discontent. The conclusion is obvious. The British public values wit and determination. Leaders who cannot handle this task risk being dismissed as ineffective. In a party seeking to regain trust, Angela and Rachel's problems with media engagement may be holding Labour back more than they realise. Angela Rayner's encounter with Piers Morgan was not just a tough interview, but a landmark moment that made many people think. The way she answered his questions revealed deep concerns about her readiness for leadership. Responding to Morgan's harsh questions, she seemed to lose confidence and focus. Instead of speaking directly and openly, she evaded answers and walked away, which only emphasized her insecurity and weakness. See you later.